be a screw, feel my own adrenaline. Yeah, I do just what I do, and I hope you let me in, yeah.
Hello and welcome back, fellow anime lovers, to MangaMuse. I am delighted to have you join us once again in the world of fanfiction and fantasy. This is the fifth part of What If Deku Meets Sonic? Special note, this fanfic is written and a masterpiece of Sonic Speed 546 on FANFICTIONnet. Do check and support the author too. Now smash the like, share and subscribe button for more. Also press the bell icon so that you never miss such great parts. Thanks for the introduction. Now let's dive into the world. Toshinori and the two Sonics were standing outside the doors to the conference room. Where on the other side were many pro-heroes they had to explain the truth to. So Tashi, how do you think this will go? Sonic asked. To be honest, young Sonic, I don't have any idea. Just then, the doors opened to reveal the principal of UA Nizu. Both Sonics had seen him before, but seeing him up close was surprising. Nizu seemed to be a combination of a white dog, bear, and mouse. He was shorter than even classic Sonic and had a mouse-like head having circular black eyes with a scar over the right one. He had dog paws for hands and was wearing a black waisted vest with a red tie. Ah, All Might. It's nice to see you doing well after today's attack. Nizu exclaimed. Thank you Nizu, we have a lot to discuss, Toshinori replied. Yes, we'll begin shortly, Nizu waved before turning to Sonic. And you're Sonic. It's a pleasure to finally meet you. Nizu smiled as he shook his hands. Oh, it's nice to meet you too, sir, Sonic replied, surprised at how formal the small principal was. And you must be Sonic's younger brother Maurice. Nizu said, shaking classic Sonic's hand. I must say it's nice to talk to someone with the same eye level as me. Especially from one mammal to another. Nizu laughed while classic Sonic only blinked at the principal's joke. Well gentlemen, we have much talking to do. Come. Nizu gestured forward. As the trio entered the room, multiple pairs of eyes landed on them. The room was big enough to fit the long table that had the U.A logo in the middle with multiple chairs. And at the back wall from the entrance of the room was a TV screen that was also branding the logo. Sonic scanned the room with his eyes which instantly landed on Aizawa. Oh boy. Sonic thought, he could only imagine how this was going to turn out. The Sonics looked at the heroes present. Classic Sonic immediately recognized the voice hero present, Mike, with his tall blonde hair and orange shades. There was a feminine hero sitting across from Aizawa which made the Sonics appalled at what she was wearing. She wore a tight white and black spandex suit that showed off her curves and body as well as a red belt with a gold buckle. She had on high heels as well as translucent thigh-high stocking garments which showed off her legs. The heroine wore a small red mask that outlined her blue eyes. Her dark purple hair was long and thick that went down to her waist. She also appeared to be wearing HNDCFFS on her wrists. Sitting next to Aizawa seemed to be a living breathing cement brick with small beady eyes while wearing a maroon-colored suit. Next to the heroine was a strange-looking hero who was covered by the trench coat he was wearing except for the helmet that he wore which covered his entire head except for his off-putting teeth which you could see. The final person in the room wore much like that of a gunslinger who would see in an old western movie. He wore a cowboy hat with a metallic plate at the front. A large S was stamped on it. He also wore a gas mask covering his face while short blue dreadlocks were poking out at the back of his head. He wore a long red cloak on his shoulders that covered most of his body, but Sonic was sure he caught a glimpse of a few guns around his waist. Toshinori sat next to Aizawa before Sonic and Classic Sonic sat next to him. A small cough from Nizu gained everyone's attention. Now that we're all here, we can finally discuss the events that took place today at the USJ. Nizu then looked at Aizawa. Aizawa, Nizu said before Aizawa stood up from his chair. Earlier today, I and the Pro Hero 13 took Class 1A to the USJ to conduct a disaster and rescue training simulation, Aizawa began. Before we could start, however, dozens of villains infiltrated the facility through a villain with a warp-type quirk and cut off any communication outside before they attacked myself, 13 and the class. Aizawa continued. The attack was definitely planned. There were just too many villains for it to be random attack, the hero with the trench coat stated, which Aizawa nodded at. Their main goal, however, was to kill All Might, Aizawa revealed, making the heroes gasp and Toshinori grimace. Are you serious, Aizawa? The feminine hero asked in shock. I am Midnight. When I was fighting the supposed leader of this League of Villains, he let it slip multiple times that they were there to kill him, Aizawa claimed, which shocked the heroes. Their secret weapon. That Nomu beast was what they planned to use to kill All Might, Aizawa stated. Wait, that wouldn't happen to be that thing the police appended outside the USJ, right, Shota? Present Mike asked, receiving a nod from the Erasure hero. And the villains would have had succeeded in their plan too. Aizawa began before he turned to Sonic. If it wasn't for Sonic here. All eyes then landed on the blue blur, who only sat frozen in his seat, the same with classic Sonic, who sat in feared anticipation. Toshinori gulped as nervous sweat dripped down his forehead. And so we now arrive at the elephant in the room. Nizu sipped on some of his tea. Sonic, would you like to explain to all of us on how you defeated that Noma, was it? And perhaps on why you were suddenly glowing and could fly? Sonic sighed before he nodded his head. Better get to it then. Basically, what you all saw me in was a state called the super form. Super form? The gun hero repeated, confused, while Sonic nodded his head. It's a state of transformation that enhances my physical capabilities and even gives me new special abilities, Sonic continued. And how did you enter this super form, Sonic? The feminine hero known as Midnight asked. To achieve the super form you have to acquire 7 unique gemstones. Otherwise known as the Chaos Emeralds, Sonic revealed, which seemed to shock everyone in the room. Chaos Emeralds? Present Mike raised a brow before Aizawa's eyes widened. Those emeralds you used to heal my injuries back at the U.S.J, those were the Chaos Emeralds you're referring to, aren't they? Aizawa realized, which Sonic smirked at. Bingo teach! Sonic exclaimed, making the pro heroes gasp. Like I said before, there are 7 Chaos Emeralds in total, and they can grant the user insane amounts of power, which was how I was able to beat the living daylights out of Big Bird back there. Sonic chuckled. They give many different types of abilities like enhanced strength, speed, invulnerability, time manipulation, energy manipulation, teleportation, the list goes on really. Sonic exclaimed. This is unbelievable. Emeralds that are capable of giving quirks to people. The hero ectoplasm questioned everything he knew. It's insane. The pro hero Cementos mumbled. No one really knows where the Chaos Emeralds came from, some believe they've been around for eons, Sonic also explained, making the pro heroes even more stunned. That's rad and all, but how come none of us have ever heard of these Chaos Emeralds until now? Present Mike asked. Well, my friend, that answer is quite simple. It's because they aren't from this world. Sonic revealed. More specifically, they're from our world. Sonic exclaimed, putting an arm around classic Sonic, who gave an awkward smile. The heroes could only stare at Sonic with shocked expressions. Nizu chirped at the reveal. Sonic, are you implying that you and Maurice are from a different world? That's right, I am. Sonic threw a thumbs up while Toshinori put a hand to his face in. Sonic could have revealed all this in a much better way. Do you really expect us to believe that, Sonic? Aizawa questioned, annoyed. But before Sonic could answer, there was a knock at the door. Oh right. How could I forget? Nizu said as he got up to answer the door. All Might had requested we invite one more person to our little meeting. Nizu opened the door to reveal Detective Tsukachi, who smiled and took off his hat as he walked in. Hello everyone, sorry I'm late, Tsukachi said as he nodded to All Might and the two blue hedgehogs. It's nice to you both again after the last time we met at the station. But it seems the cat is finally out of the bag, huh? Tsukachi said as he looked at Aizawa. Aizawa. Detective Aizawa nodded back while Toshinori stood up. I have asked Detective Tsukachi to join us so that he can prove everything in young Sonic's story to be true. Wait, you knew about this, All Might? Midnight questioned him with shock. I did, ever since the young Sonics arrived to our world almost a year ago. I have given them food and shelter, Toshinori said, crossing his arms. However, Midnight's face did not look happy. You should have came to us and disclosed this information the moment you learned of it, Toshinori. She almost shouted. Toshinori flinched. Whenever Midnight would call him by his real name, it was because she was upset or straight up mad at him. Now, Midnight. Although I agree All Might should have shared with us about what he discovered with Sonic and Maurice. He had his reasons not to, and we will not hold that against him. Nizu put his foot down. I did become curious when I noticed that Sonic's and Maurice's listed address on their documents was the same as your All Might, but I never pushed you on why, Nizu claimed. Nizu chuckled, but I never would have thought it would be because of something like this. Wait, you said Sonic with AS at the end? Like there is more than one Sonic present, what do you mean by that, All Might? Ectoplasm asked. That's because Maurice here isn't actually my younger brother, he's actually myself just from the past. Which means he's Sonic as well. Sonic explained while gesturing to classic Sonic, who waved at the heroes who were in disbelief at what they heard. What? Almost all the heroes in the room yelled in shock. They all immediately turned to Tsukachi, who confirmed it with his quirk before they all fell comedically. BB, but how is something like that even possible? Present Mike stuttered. Sonic here has all the answers to your questions, and you better listen because he has quite the story to tell you all, Tsukachi chuckled. Just like with Midoriya, Sonic explained everything he could with classic Sonic while Toshinori backed them up and Tsukachi confirmed everything with his quirk to the baffled pro-heroes. Sonic told them everything about how they and the Chaos Emeralds came from a world without quirks. They explained how they got here with the events of the Time Eater and how the two Eggmen wanted to rule their world with its power. Both Sonics had to explain just how dangerous these two Eggmen could be. After the Sonics finished their story, the heroes were left stunned at what they heard. What a fascinating story, Nizu sipped on his tea. All of this is insane, Aizawa muttered, who knew one of my students happened to be some interdimensional being. It's like something out of a fairy tale, Midnight said as she rubbed her forehead. So what, does this technically mean you're both are aliens or something? The pro-hero Snipe questioned. I guess so, Sonic shrugged. I have met my fair share of aliens back on my world. Of course he did. The heroes thought in unison, not even surprised anymore. This does answer a question of mine though, Aizawa noted aloud. Huh? Sonic said in confusion. Back at the USJ when I tried to use my quirk on you and it didn't work, I thought I was just crazy. But this explains it. Aizawa leaned back on his chair. My erasure quirk couldn't erase yours because you don't have a quirk to erase in the first place. Your speed is as natural to you as your arms and eyes, Aizawa concluded while Midnight nodded. It also answers one of my questions as well, Midnight stated with a smile. Back when I saw you both at the UDA entrance exam I had thought you two looked familiar, Midnight explained. But when you mentioned the part where you just arrived to our world and fought that sludge villain in your story, I quickly remembered something, Midnight claimed. 10 months ago when I had just stopped your everyday mugger. I had received a distress call that a villain was attacking a market district and had someone hostage. When I arrived, however, I had found that the villain was already defeated and the three heroes nearby were surrounding these two blue adorable little fuzzballs, Midnight giggled. Both Sonic stared at Midnight confused before Sonic began to think back to that moment. His eyes widened as he remembered hearing someone behind him before he and classic Sonic were put asleep by that pink gas. Well, aren't you two little fuzzballs adorable? Wait a second, the pink gas. That was you. Sonic exclaimed while classic Sonic looked at Midnight in shock. Guilty as charged, Midnight winked at the two hedgehogs. This reunion is nice and all. Cementos mumbled. But what about the Chaos Emeralds? Where did they go? Cementos questioned only to be met back with a shrug from Sonic. Who knows, whenever someone uses the emeralds to go super. The moment they exit the form, the Chaos Emeralds split and take off in different directions. Sonic explained. Perfect, not only could these gemstones be anywhere but there's a chance a civilian or worse a villain would stumble across one of them, Aizawa grumbled. We'll have to put out an alert to all pro heroes in Japan then to be on the lookout for any emeralds laying on the ground, Nizu stated before he looked at both Sonics. Sonics, I'm not blaming either of you, but you both have unintentionally brought a new power to this world unlike anything this superhuman society has seen before. Nizu stated while the Sonics only listened. I now understand why All Might decided to keep all of this hidden from us. If the Chaos Emeralds and what they are capable of were revealed to the world, villains, private organizations and even whole governments and countries would be after them and the power they hold. Which would leave me and my little buddy stranded in your guys' world with no way home, Sonic concluded. Nizu nodded, and now that the leader of the villains who attacked today saw that power he now may be after it. We must do anything in our power to retrieve those Chaos Emeralds before any villain does first, Nizu said sipping his tea once more. For the greater good. But for now this meeting is officially over. It was nice to finally getting to know who you really are Sonic and past Sonic, Nizu chirped. Toshinori sighed out of relief knowing everyone took the truth well. But then another thought came to his mind, Nizu. What about Class 1A? What should we tell them about all this? Ah yes, What should we do? Nizu pondered before he turned to Aizawa. Aizawa, it is your class we're talking about here, you know them better than any of us do. What do you think? Aizawa stayed quiet before eventually turning to Sonic. Well Nizu, it's like you said, we should leave that up to the person who knows his classmates best. I'm only their teacher after all. If Sonic wants to tell them the truth or not, I say why not. As long as the students don't go spilling their guts to everyone they know. Aizawa also pointed out. Sounds good to me, teach. Sonic smiled. Well, I guess that settles it then. School will be back in session in a couple of days, until then we need to figure a way to upgrade our security. But for the rest of today you're all free to go. Nizu exclaimed as everyone got up to leave. See you in class soon Sonic, make sure you study over this small break, Aizawa tiredly said. Nice meeting you too Maurice or Dash. Sonic as well, as if one Sonic was bad enough. Aizawa scratched his head while mumbling about how confusing this all was. See what I mean? Sonic pointed a thumb at his teacher while classic Sonic snickered. Come on young Sonics, let's get going home. It's been a long day, Toshinori yawned. I'll say. Sonic replied as the trio walked down the halls. Special report. An update on the incident at U.A's Rescue Training Center where Hero Course students were attacked by a gang of villains 2 days ago. People who were walking by on the streets of Mustafa looked up at the large screen with interest where a news lady was giving a report. It's been reported by police officials that the group of criminals called themselves the League of Villains. Investigators have reportedly uncovered that this group has been plotting to kill U.A teacher and popular hero All Might since the spring of this year. Many of the citizens gasped at what they heard. Why would anyone want to kill All Might? As they pondered this question, no one noticed the blue blur that raced down the street and up a nearby building across from the broadcast. 72 villains were arrested at the scene and regarding the group's leader, his whereabouts are unknown. That of course none of us knew this was happening until that infamous beam of light was shot up from the facility and into the sky where it was reported it could be seen up to 80 kilometers away from the USJ. If it was either a villain or hero's quirk responsible for the light show is still unknown. But according to many eyewitnesses, shortly after the strange phenomenon it was reported that there were streaks of colored light shooting through the sky. The news lady explained as a blurry picture of a streak of green was shown to her left and another of white below that. Across the street on top of a building, Sonic sighed as he watched the broadcast. "Well, this is just great, now everybody somewhat knows about the emeralds," Sonic groaned. It had been 2 days since the attack on the USJ, and on when Sonic and Classic Sonic told the U.A staff everything. For the past 2 days both Sonics had zoomed around the city trying to find the Chaos Emeralds but with no such luck. Although what they were doing is technically breaking the law as they were using their quirk without permission. But you can't get in trouble if you don't get caught. This only adds to the long list of mysteries of what exactly happened 2 days ago. This is all that we currently know about. Until then, this is Miku reporting from NHA News. Good night. The broadcast came to an end. Sonic looked down below to see another blue blur rush up the building he was on before coming to a stop next to him. "Find anything, little buddy?" Classic Sonic only shook his head with disappointment. "Now if I was a Chaos Emerald, where would I be? Using them is the fun part, but looking for them all over again is the annoying part." Sonic crossed his arms, Classic Sonic nodding in agreement. "Especially in new terrain." Both Sonics gazed out into the city. The glowing city at night was appealing. It reminded Sonic of the cities back home like Station Square and Empire City. Even though for Classic Sonic, who hadn't visited those places yet and had been on South Island his whole life, the sight was still pretty nice to look at. The Sonics sat down with their legs dangling off the building. "Our ticket home is somewhere out there, little buddy," Sonic said as he continued to gaze at the shining city. Classic Sonic glanced to his future self before looking back at the city and thought, if only Tails was here, he might have been able to cook up a device that could track the Chaos Emeralds. Technology was always his thing. A sigh from his future self brought him out of his thoughts. If only we used the Chaos Emeralds the moment we got here. Classic Sonic had noticed for the past few days that his future self had been sighing a lot. He couldn't tell if Sonic was just tired or was starting to lose hope. "What are we going to do?" Classic Sonic scratched his chin before an idea popped into his head. The young hedgehog hopped up before he ran down the building and down the street. Sonic raised a brow as he watched his younger self turn a corner down the street before suddenly the blue blur came right back and up the building. He watched Classic Sonic, who now had a pencil and sticky note, scribble something down before handing it to Sonic. "We won't lose hope." Sonic looked back at his past self, who nodded his head with a kind smile. Sonic smirked in return as he stood up. "You're right, buddy. We won't lose hope. We never lost hope before and we won't now," Sonic exclaimed as Classic Sonic clenched his hands and nodded. "We'll add it to the Sonic oath. Come on, let's head back to Toshi's before he starts to get worried," Sonic quickly said, gaining another nod. "Let's juice." Both Sonics then ran down the building and down the street, leaving behind a blue blur. Toshinori put the pen he was using down as he examined the letter he had finished writing. This letter was for another one of his old mentors that helped him to control and use one for all, as well as helping him turn into the hero he was today. "Dear Sorahiko Torino. Greetings, how are you doing, old friend? I hope this letter finds you well, sir. In good health and even better spirits. This semester, I took a position as a teacher at U.A High School. That's right. I'm now guiding the next generation of heroes. I was hoping to find someone worthy of inheriting my power among the elite students at the school. A hero in training with outstanding test scores and a powerful quirk. However, before I even began my tenure at U.A, I met a young man. Even though he was weak and had no quirk of his own, he showed incredible bravery. He rushed into a dangerous situation that made other pro-heroes even as well as myself hesitate in. And I felt like watching this young man spring into action taught me something that day. It reminded me of the virtues I must embody in order to call myself a hero. Not long after that I revealed the true nature of One for All and offered it to him so that one day he'll become an amazing hero. He accepted without hesitation, and the rest is history as I continue to train and teach him as my predecessor. Oh, and one more thing, recently for the past few months I've been taking care of these two young hedgehogs. And no, I don't mean pet hedgehogs. They are two young brothers who have a hedgehog mutant type quirk, while at the same time have been gifted with incredible speed. And that's not to mention the skill they possess. However, the most important thing I've learned about them is that they embody what it means to be a hero. A lot of pros including myself could learn a lot from them. As a matter of fact, when I was at my low, they reminded me on who I was, who All Might was. I don't know if this letter will reach you. I might honestly be wasting time writing this. But if it does, I hope you are doing well and safe in this time of rising villainy. Your old student, Toshinori Yagi. Toshinori smiled as he folded the letter into the envelope before licking it shut and writing down the designated address. Toshinori turned his head as he heard the front door open before both Sonic and Classic Sonic rushed in. Young Sonic, young Maurice. Hey Tosh. Whatcha got there? Sonic asked, noticing the envelope in Toshinori's hand. Ah, nothing much, young Sonic. Just writing to an old friend, Toshinori replied, putting the envelope down on the coffee table. What have you both been up to? I was starting to get worried where you guys were considering how late it is. Don't worry about us, Tosh. We were just going on a late night run. Right, little me? Sonic asked to Classic Sonic, who nodded his head while grinning. And you both totally weren't out looking for the Chaos Emeralds, right? Toshinori questioned with his hands on his hips, which stunned the two Sonics. Ah, what? How'd you know? Come on, young Sonic, I'm not dumb, Toshinori huffed. Oh well, I guess that means we're criminals and you have to turn us in, right, Toshi? Sonic smirked as he flopped onto the couch while Classic Sonic drew a frowning face on a sticky note before holding it up to his own comedic frowned face while giving Toshinori puppy eyes. Toshinori only rolled his eyes. Haha, you two, even though you both are technically breaking the law, I won't do anything. As a matter of fact, I'm glad you're both helping out because we need all the help we can get and you both are perhaps the fastest in the city. Just make sure you don't get caught using your speed by other heroes. They probably won't have the same opinion as me. Not a problem. We'll be careful, Toshi. Sonic exclaimed. Right, now let's hit the hay. School starts back up tomorrow, so let's rest up, Toshinori smiled. Yeah, I'm pooped, night Tosh. Sonic said while Classic Sonic followed behind him yawning. Toshinori's smile fell as the door closed, his eyes landed on the envelope on the coffee table. He continued to stare at it before shaking his head and walking off to his own room. You guys. Did you see the news last night? Hagekure exclaimed. Ojiro and Shuji turned to her. Yeah. Ojiro tilted his head. It was so cool that we got a few seconds of screen time. Hagekure smiled brightly, although no one could see it. Though I bet no one noticed me hanging in the background. Her mood fell immediately. Probably not, Shuji agreed bluntly. Heh, it's kind of strong to get noticed if you're just a floating pair of gloves, Ojiro pointed out, receiving a sad MMM from the invisible girl. I think it's kinda cool how we made it onto the news. Those news channels love us. We're totally celebrities. Kaminari smirked, leaning back on his chair. Idiot. Jiro mumbled, the media only cares about the fact that Udade was attacked by villains, they don't care about you. Power outage, Kaminari gasped as he felt a bit of his pride get obliterated. Who knows what would have happened to us if Sonic didn't step in, Zero also brought up. But hey. Don't act like All Might and the rest of the teachers weren't helping out. Kirishima responded. I know that. But All Might was kinda getting thrown around until Sonic went from blue to yellow. Did you guys see Sonic fighting the bird guy? He was super strong. Sato asked, his excitement showing as he punched the air through quick jabs. Oh. Are you guys talking about Sonic? Wasn't he so cool? Mina gushed on with excitement. Tokoyami nodded his head, yes, that power he showed was truly a thing of wonder. I'm most certainly thankful he didn't use it during our mock battle. But for a student to have power that could easily defeat an opponent All Might was struggling with, it's unsettling, Momo shivered. Makes you wonder where it came from Ribbit. But nonetheless I feel bad for Bakugou. He was bragging about how he's the best and most powerful here only to get overshadowed and left in the dust by Sonic, so you jabbed at the explosive teen. What did you say? I'll beat you and the blue mouse no matter what fancy quirk he has. Bakugou yelled from across the classroom. The door to the classroom opened and all eyes landed on the blue hedgehog who walked in. Well, even when I'm not here it seems you can't stop thinking about me, Haboom boy. I'm flattered, Sonic smirked as he stared at the blonde who if he had looks, they would kill. Speak of the devil, Bakugou grumbled. Sonic. How were your 2 days off? Izuku asked, smiling. Pretty boring if you ask me, Sonic shrugged as he sat down at his desk. Yeah, mine wasn't too thrilling either. But I'm kind of glad after what we just went through. Uraraka laughed. The door to the classroom opened once more, where Aizawa walked in tiredly as usual. Morning class, I hope you had a nice 2-day break, Aizawa mumbled. Mr. Aizawa. I'm glad you're doing okay. Ida called out. My well-being is irrelevant. Because our fight isn't over. Aizawa stated, confusing the class. Wait, what? Not over. Sonic thought, who did they have to fight now? The U. Sports Festival is about to start, class. 1A had a collective sigh of relief as they heard that while their excitement grew. Sonic on the other hand had no idea that they were talking about. Sports Festival. So what? There's going to be like a parade or something. And games like football. Sonic mentally guessed. Aizawa sighed as he could see the look of confusion on the blue blur's face. Of course he wouldn't know. For those who don't know what I'm talking about. The U. Sports Festival is a competition where students of U.A will be competing against one another in a series of games and tests to reach first place, Aizawa explained, receiving a thankful nod from Sonic. Oh, okay. So it's kinda like a tournament. Cool. Before we dwell on this topic, let's talk about the elephant in the room. Or in this case, hedgehog. I'm sure all of you are dying to ask your fellow blue classmates some questions, Aizawa said as all eyes in the room landed on Sonic. Sonic frowned, putting me on the spot. Not cool, teach. Sonic then got up from his desk before walking towards the front of the room where he stopped. All right everyone, ask away. Okay, spill it, blue mouse. What the hell did you pull back there? Bakugou immediately attacked. Why were you glowing gold? Kaminari questioned, a hand raised in the air. Oh. How were you able to fly? Uraraka beamed. What were those appealing shiny gemstones you used to heal Sir Aizawa? Aoyama twinkled brightly. How the heck did you become invincible? It was so manly. Kirishima exclaimed. How did you achieve such power? How did you possess multiple quirks? Todoroki calmly asked. That one was a surprise to Sonic, since the scarred boy usually kept to himself. Geez, they're more chaotic than the Chaos Emeralds themselves. Okay, one at a time please. Sonic shouted as the class quieted down. Mina. You first. Sonic pointed towards the pink-skinned girl with small horns. Well, just like Aoyama's question. What were those strange glowing rocks you used to heal Mr. Aizawa? Mina asked. Phew, I'm glad you asked that because it's gonna help answer a lot of other questions. Sonic said. Those rocks you saw me use back there are called the Power Stones. Sonic lied. The class looked at him confused, Midoriya and Aizawa, because they knew that's not what Sonic called them. Power stones? Mineta repeated. Why yeah. There are 7 in total and each one gives you a different quirk. Pretty cool huh? Sonic explained while sweating nervously. He was hoping no one could notice. Oh I see. That's how you were able to fly and teleport. Kirishima caught on. Exactly. But where did these power stones even come from? And how did you even have access to them in the first place, Blue Mouse? Bakugou questioned threateningly. Sonic had to come up with something, and fast. You see my hot-headed friend. Back in America, there's this company called Sega Corp. And with the help of quirks and technology, they were able to create the P-Power Stones. Sonic stated. And I happened to volunteer and help test them out. Sonic smiled nervously. He didn't know how long he could keep the lying up, but the power stones are a bit unstable, which is why after I used them they flew off. Sonic concluded. I didn't know it was possible to put quirks into stones. Momo scratched her head. Well, it's like they say. You learn something new every day. Thank you, Sonic, you may take your seat. Now that you all know the truth, let's get back onto the subject of the sports festival, Aizawa stated as Sonic walked back to his desk. I hope they buy that, Sonic thought as he sat down. The sports festival is more than just a tournament you're aiming to win. The entire world will be watching, which includes all the pros, Aizawa revealed. Wow, the whole world. Sonic thought in shock. That's right. Top heroes everywhere will be watching. This is where you get scouted. If pro heroes are impressed, you could earn the chance to get into an internship with them. Momo explained excitingly. So the better your performance is at the festival, the better chance a pro hero would pick you. Sounds cool. Sonic exclaimed. Correct, that's why the festival matters. If you want to go pro one day, then this event could open a path for you, Aizawa stated. 1 chance a year. 3 chances a lifetime. So that means you all better not slack off on your training, Aizawa crossed his arms. Yes sir. Class dismissed, and Sonic. I need to talk with you for a moment. Sure thing, teach. Sonic smiled brightly. The class then began to leave, excited about the sports festival. You could say Uraraka was a bit too excited as she was starting to scare her fellow classmates. As the last person left though, Aizawa turned to Sonic. So you decided not to tell the truth huh? He asked. Sonic shook his head. The only person who knows the truth is Midoriya. I just don't think everyone else is ready. That's understandable, but if you do decide to start telling the truth, be careful who you tell it to, Aizawa advised. No sweat, teach. And besides, I think the name, Power Stones, sounds a lot less intimidating than Chaos Emeralds, Sonic pointed out. Whatever you say, Sonic, you're dismissed now, Aizawa responded tiredly. Do you not like having me around, teach? I thought I was your favorite. Sonic grinned. I don't pick favorites, Aizawa dryly said, grading some papers before shoving one in Sonic's face. Especially when a specific hedgehog's grades look like this. Sonic's eyes scanned the paper to see that it was his and that he had a C-. Point taken, catch you around, teach. Aizawa just waved him off. Sonic walked to the door, but as he grabbed the handle, he noticed that door was already slightly open. That's strange, I could have sworn I saw Ojiro close it. Sonic thought. He peeked his head out the door and saw only 2 students passing by. He shrugged before he walked off. But unbeknownst to Sonic and Aizawa was that someone had secretly been eavesdropping on their conversation and heard everything before quickly hurrying off. Classic Sonic walked through the door and gave his usual wave to Pony. He then made his way to his seat before sitting down. Or that's what he usually would do. Instead, the moment he entered the classroom, Pony and a couple of other classmates swarmed him. Maurice. I heard what happened to your brother's class. Is Sonic and the others okay? Pony exclaimed with a look of worry on her face. This caught classic Sonic off guard. But he quickly reassured them that they were fine. Phew. That's a relief. Setsuna sighed. Indeed, when I heard what happened. I prayed they would be okay, Kibara said. It seemed even though she was defeated by classic Sonic at the mock battles, she didn't hold any grudge against him, which classic Sonic was glad about. Oh boo-hoo. They had All Might with them, they were going to be okay no matter what. Monoma scoffed. But the same couldn't be said for Monoma. Classic Sonic had noticed that the arrogant blonde had been giving him dirty looks ever since the mock battles. Most likely because of his defeat or because he was suspicious. Most likely both. Even so, it was still pretty manly for them to fight real villains. I wish I was there. Tetsu exclaimed, slamming his fist into his palm. Oh, calm down, knucklehead. You probably would have wet your pants if you were there. Setsuna laughed. Would not. He shot back. Classic Sonic snickered as he sat down. The past 2 days had been crazy, now that him and his future self had seemingly no way home. It had been their mission to find the Chaos Emeralds as fast as possible before perhaps any villain does first. But so far not even one Chaos Emerald had been found, nor any reports from other heroes. As classic Sonic continued to think, the door to the class slid open and in walked Vlad King. Good morning, class, I hope you all had an excellent 2-day break. Vlad King sat down. It was quite the surprise to hear that Aizawa and his class were attacked by villains. And at the fact the school shut down because of it, Vlad commented. They probably think they're so cool just because they beat some lousy villains. Monoma scoffed again. Classic Sonic only rolled his eyes. It's a good thing they made it out without much injury. But class, they experienced a real villain attack. That will help them to become great future pros. If you want to catch up, you all must work strong. Vlad stated. Yes, sir. The class said in unison. For today we will be discussing about the upcoming sports festival, and after that we will be choosing our hero names, Vlad stated. Classic Sonic raised a brow. Sports festival. He didn't know what that was, but choosing hero names. That sounds like fun. As you all know, the U. Sports Festival is a series of challenges where you will be competing against one another and even against all of you. Vlad explained. But can anyone tell me why this festival matters? Kendo raised her hand. It's because of scouts, sir. Correct, Kendo, most of the world will be watching you out there. That includes the pro heroes as well. Scouts watch the festival to look for any potential future pros and then take them under their wing for internships. How long do these internships last? Yosetsu asked. 1 week. For 1 week the pros you are interning with will teach you and give you advice at becoming the best hero you possibly can be, Vlad replied. This festival can help you all exponentially into becoming pro heroes. I recommend with the time you have, you train and improve as much as you can. Vlad advised. Because in the end, it will all be worth it. Classic Sonic scratched his chin. So this festival was all about impressing a bunch of pro heroes so you could intern with them. If he did good in this festival, he wondered what type of pro would choose him. What quirk would they have? Now, although we're usually supposed to do this after the festival, because of recent events I have decided that now is the perfect time to choose our hero names. Vlad said. Suddenly the door opened and Classic Sonic's eyes slightly widened as Midnight walked in. Hello, cuties. Are you all ready to pick out some hero names? Midnight exclaimed as she struck the stuck pose. Class 1B stared at her confused, with most of the boys blushing. Oh yes, I forgot to mention, but Midnight will be joining us. Vlad scratched the back of his head. You can rest that adorable little face of yours, Vlad, because now I'm taking over. Midnight struck another pose. She then began to hand out boards and markers to the class. For 10 minutes you will all come up with your hero name and title. But choose carefully. Because it may just stick with you for the rest of your lives. Midnight warned. The rest of our lives? Pony repeated in shock. That's right. Once you're done, write it on the board, and once the 10 minutes are up you'll come up to the front of the class and present it. Midnight explained. Now begin. The class began to think deep in thought, and even conversed with each other on what they thought would be great hero names. Classic Sonic would have just gone with Sonic as his, but that name was a no-go. He then thought about other ideas. The Streak? Nah. Blue Justice? Too over the top. Captain Hedgehog? Definitely no. Classic Sonic began to tap his foot against the floor as he tried to think of something. Suddenly a light bulb appeared over his head. Classic Sonic smirked as he wrote the name on his board before he began to wait. He looked around and saw that some of his classmates were done while others were still sorting through ideas. Eventually though, the 10 minutes came to an end. Time's up. Now who wants to go first? Midnight asked the class. Class 1B glanced at one another hesitantly before Kendo stood up. She walked towards the front of the class with a confident smile plastered on her face. She flipped her board around, revealing her hero name she chose. The Punching Hero. Battle Fist. Kendo exclaimed. Oh, I love it. Midnight gushed while Kendo walked back to her seat. Now who's next? Tetsu then walked up. The Metal Hero. Real Steel. He proudly shouted. Another great name. This CYCL continued on. Students would walk up and display their name before repeating it. Midnight would approve of some names while sometimes telling one or two to edit it or to change it completely. Pony then stepped up, the Hooved Hero. Thunderhorn. Ooh. You'll definitely scare those villains away with a name like that. Go for it. Midnight approved. Classic Sonic smiled as he gave a thumbs up to Pony, which didn't go unnoticed by her as she gave a thumbs up right back. You all better prepare yourselves. Because this is the greatest name you'll ever hear. Monoma claimed as he flipped his board. The Copy Hero. Phantom Thief. Oh, how mysterious. Midnight gasped. Classic Sonic shrugged, he guessed it wasn't half bad. Maurice. You're up next. Classic Sonic got up before making it to the front of the class. He had to hop on top of Vlad's desk so everyone could see him. He glanced down at his board one last time before revealing it. The Speedy Hero. The Blue Blur. Very clever, Maurice. But perhaps lose the and just go with Blue Blur, Midnight said, receiving a nod. Cool name. Pony whispered as Classic Sonic went past her. The Blue Hedgehog smiled back before sitting down. Okay, Reiko. You're our last one. Midnight announced. Classic Sonic smiled as he turned to her. But that smile fell as he could see her shivering out of fear. He knew Reiko wasn't much of a social butterfly, so speaking in front of the class even for a few moments might be too much for her. He watched her slowly stand up, but before she could move forward, Classic Sonic grabbed her hand. Reiko gave a small gasp as she turned to her small blue friend. Classic Sonic gestured to himself, taking in a deep breath before exhaling. She stared at him for a few seconds before taking in a deep breath. Classic Sonic nodded while smiling before letting her hand go. Reiko nodded back before making her way to the front. I chose the TT title, the P Paranormal Hero, and my hero name is Emily. Reiko stuttered out, flipping her board. Most of the class just stared at her silently. They thought a simple name like Emily was a strange choice for a hero name. Reiko could only stare at the class with growing red cheeks. Emily, huh? Sounds spooky. But it goes well with your theme. I like it a lot. Midnight happily agreed. Reiko gave her a small smile, but something caught her eyes in the back of the class, specifically at the desk next to hers. Classic Sonic, who was standing on top of his desk with his board in hand, was waving it around in the air. But what was written on the board was the name Emily. The class looked at him confused until Kendo smirked at the scene. Emily. 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 Everyone turned to the girl who was chanting her name. Setsuna smiled at her before she also started to chant. It wasn't long before the entire class was chanting her name. Reiko looked at the class astonished, but mainly stared at Classic Sonic, who by now stopped waving the board and nodded towards her while stretching a thumbs up out towards her. Maurice. Reiko managed to whisper. Vlad King, who this entire time had been watching at his desk, grinned at what he was seeing. He's trying to make her feel more comfortable. He thought with a smile. Being a hero is more than just saving people from villains or out of harm's way. It's about inspiring and giving people the confidence they need to reach their dreams. Hey! Guys! Sonic ran down the halls toward his three friends but had to stop after a faculty member yelled at him. Sonic! You caught up. Midoriya turned with a smile. What did Mr. Aizawa want? Ida asked. Nothing much, just telling me I need to improve my grades, Sonic replied, although this made Ida frown. Sonic. It's very important to keep up on your schoolwork and make good grades. Responsibility is one of the traits a pro-hero must have. Ida scolded, chopping the air rapidly. I know. I know. But enough about that, what are you guys up to? Oh. I had just asked Uraraka why she wanted to be a hero, Midoriya said, but for some reason Uraraka's face was strangely flustered. That's cool, why do you want to be a hero, Gravity Girl? He turned to her. Well, if we're cutting to the chase. Uraraka began hesitantly. It's the money. Really? The money? Sonic asked. He wasn't mad or disappointed at the answer, he was just surprised. You want to be a hero so you can get rich? Midoriya also asked in surprise. I'm sorry if that sounds greedy. Uraraka cried out. You guys have such admirable motivations, please don't think any less of me. She begged. Not at all. Your goal is to support your well-being, which is a perfectly admirable ambition to have. Ida reassured. Yeah. I don't see what's wrong about that. Sonic also agreed with him. Uraraka sighed, well, you see, my family owns a construction company. But we haven't gotten any work lately, so we're flat out broke. Uraraka explained while messing with her hair nervously. Anyway, this isn't something I usually tell two other people. FANFICTIONnet. Ida scratched his chin in thought. Midoriya gasped, if she were to get licensed, I bet she could use her quirk to bring costs down by a lot. And on top of that they could sell their construction equipment. Ida also brought up. Yeah, hey. That's pretty smart, Gravity Girl. Sonic agreed. I know, right? I've been telling my dad that since I was a kid. Uraraka exclaimed, but suddenly her mood dropped. But, my dad and mom would always tell me to not worry about their financial problems. Uraraka explained, which surprised the three. They would rather me to not help them out at all. But why? If you're willing to help them out, why would they decide not to accept it? Sonic asked. Sonic personally never had any trouble with money, back in his world he ran wherever the wind took him. And that, of course, there were always those golden rings floating around for some reason. Which it seemed they weren't around in this dimension. My parents always told me they want me to stop worrying about them all the time and to just focus on my dreams. Uraraka said as she stared down at the floor. So one day, I decided to listen to them. She looked back up at the three with seriousness in her brown eyes. I'm going to become a pro. I'll sign with a good agency and make plenty of money. Uraraka clenched her skirt. Then I'll be able to let my parents have the easy life they deserve. Ida and Midoriya looked at Uraraka in awe. Sonic smiled. That's a pretty nice dream you got there, Gravity Girl. Yeah. Uraraka nodded back, but then something came to her. Oh. Sonic. Now that you know why I want to be a hero. Why do you want to be one? Uraraka asked with curiosity. Me? Why do I want to be one? Sonic repeated. This had caught him off guard. Well, Ida wants to be one to take up the mantle of his brother, and Deku because he wants to put a smile on everyone's faces. Uraraka brought up. But you never really told us on why you wanted to be one. Now that you mention it, Uraraka, what is your drive, Sonic? Ida now also asked. Midoriya only stayed silent. He of course knew info that the other two didn't. But he had heard that Sonic was a hero back on his world. So he too also wondered what his motivation was. His drive. Sonic hummed as he pondered the question. He was basically already a hero back on his world. He had saved many lives and stopped many evil schemes. But now that he thought about it, he had always been too busy running to actually stop and ask himself why he does what he does. Why does he even bother trying to stop Eggman? Why doesn't he just let him be somebody else's problem? Was he perhaps doing this just for the thrill? Or was there a deeper reasoning? Sonic looked out towards the nearby window with his gloved hands on the railing. He could see the bustling city of Mustafa. Full of happy people and families with children who had dreams of their own they wanted to achieve. He could see the nearby forests and mountains full of life and wild creatures of all kinds. They all had one thing in common. Freedom. Back when Robotnik first attacked South Island. An event which didn't happen too long ago for his past self but had been years since then for Sonic. Eggman was trying to take over the island to find the Chaos Emeralds. But he was taking the wildlife and putting them into his badniks to power them and was using them to take over the island. He was taking away their freedom. Sonic had stopped him of course and freed the Flickies from Eggman's machines. After that Sonic vowed he wouldn't let it happen again, and now for years he had continued stopping Eggman's plans and saving the world. That's why he does what he does. Sonic was a freedom fighter at heart. By now his three human friends were starting to get concerned for the blue blur as he stayed quiet for a while. Sonic? Are you okay? If I struck something personal I'm really sorry. Why, you don't have to answer it if you want. Uraraka apologized. Freedom. The three looked at Sonic confused. Freedom. Midoriya repeated. Sonic turned to the three with a warm smile. Yes, that's why I want to be a hero. I want to protect and assure everyone's freedom. There are villains out there who want to take people's freedom away. They take away someone's freedom by taking away their lives or possibly in even worse ways. Sonic continued, I want people to live happily and free without any worry. So they can have the chance to experience life and the world around them. And I'm sure there are villains out there who aren't really villains, but people who are in bad situations and just want a way out, but unfortunately just don't have any choice, Sonic explained. So I want to help them too. I want to help them get their choices back. To help them feel free again, Sonic finished. That's why I want to be a hero. Sonic's words hit Izuku like a truck. Midoriya had never thought about it like that. Being a hero to ensure someone's freedom. Most people think a hero just comes along, beats the villain and saves the day. But Sonic knows it's more than that. Some people never wanted to be a villain. To be labeled as one. Midoriya was brought out of his thoughts as he heard sniffles. Bravo, Sonic. Bravo. That was appealing. Ida clapped with tears coming out of his eyes. That was really sweet, Sonic, Uraraka sniffled, wiping a tear away. Ah, come on guys, it wasn't that good. Sonic chuckled, while scratching his quills. Ha 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 ha. The four quickly turned down the hall where a speeding All Might was heading towards them before coming to a halt. He was wearing a tuxedo with a maroon tie. Young Midoriya and young Sonic are here. All Might pointed to the two. Tashi. Whoa, All Might. What are you doing here? Midoriya asked. Lunch. Do you both care to join? I really need to talk to you two about something. Both Hedgehog and Human looked at each other before nodding. Yeah, sure, All Might. Midoriya agreed. Well, I guess we'll catch you guys later. See ya guys. Sonic turned to Ida and Uraraka, who currently had baffled looks as they watched the three run off. Bye I guess. Uraraka gave an awkward wave. That's peculiar. I wonder what All Might wants with them. Ida asked while Uraraka shrugged. The three walked into the teacher's lounge, where Sonic and Izuku were surprised to find classic Sonic sitting on the couch. He gave them a wave but then ran to get a tissue for Toshinori after he transformed out of All Might and started coughing up blood. Only 50 minutes? Izuku asked in shock. That's it? That's all the time you have now to be All Might? Sonic also asked while classic Sonic looked surprised. Yeah, that's about how long I can use my power now. I overdid it too many times, Toshinori said sadly. That Nomu was one tough customer, it took a lot out of me. Sorry Tashi, I should have used the emeralds to go super sooner, Sonic frowned. I'm sorry too. I should have just dash. Midoriya was cut off as Toshinori started to laugh and cough up blood at the same time. Come on you two. You both don't need to apologize for anything. Toshinori assured while putting 3 cups of tea on the table in front of them. But that's not what we will be discussing. I'm sure you three are wondering why I fetched y'all, right? Toshinori asked. Yeah, what's happening, Tosh? Sonic replied. I brought you three here to talk about the sports festival. But the problem is that young Midoriya here still hasn't gotten one for all under control. That is true, every time I use it my arms and legs continue to break. Izuku sadly said, but then his mind flashed to something. Wait. They didn't once. When I landed a smash on that brain villain. My arm didn't break. Midoriya exclaimed. Oh yeah, it didn't. I just didn't notice it at the time because I was getting the life squeezed out of me. Sonic laughed. So what was different about that smash? Toshinori asked. I don't know, we were facing real villains, and Sonic was in danger. I didn't have much time to think. But maybe that's part of it since I knew this wasn't just training. Midoriya went through the possible reasons. At least that's some progress. But now this is the part where you two come in. Toshinori pointed to the two Sonics. Classic Sonic only tilted his head as he sipped on his tea. I've been doing some thinking. How about you three train together for the sports festival? Toshinori suggested, which surprised the three. Why you want us to train together? Midoriya asked. Considering we all know each other's secrets, I say why not? Toshinori stated, perhaps young Sonic and young Maurice could help you achieve better control of One for All. Sonic leaned back on the couch they were sitting on. I don't know, Tosh. Speeds are game, not really the same with super strength. Sonic pointed out. True. But having an opponent to spar can always help out despite the quirk or power. And don't worry. I'll be present to help out as well. Toshinori reassured. Oh okay then, I think this can help. Midoriya agreed. Yeah, I'm down. Sonic also agreed before turning to classic Sonic. And hey. Perhaps we can resume our training sessions on teaching you a few of my techniques. Now would be the perfect time. Sonic brought up. Classic Sonic jumped up in excitement. It had been a while since they last trained. Toshinori smiled. I guess that settles it. The sports festival starts in 12 days, so we have some time to work with. The entire country will be watching this festival very closely. Right. Izuku exclaimed. Young Midoriya. I want you to think of this sports festival as your debut. You are the fledgling symbol of peace. The next All Might. When you step out there, I want you to introduce yourself to the world and proudly say, I am here. And no. Please. Somebody help me. The bloodied man yelled as ran through the dark alley. He was holding onto his arm which was oozing out blood from the deep gash. That psychopath, I was only trying to help her. Why is she trying to kill me? The man muttered, thinking back to the strange girl. The man had just been walking home from a long day at work, but on his way he spotted a girl sitting and crying into her legs. She seemed to have been in high school due to the school uniform she was wearing. But when he approached her and asked if she was okay, he had gotten no response except for more muffled crying. But then she spoke. Would you bleed for me? That question rang through the man's head as he turned a corner in hopes of finding an exit. When she had asked that, the man didn't know how to respond. But before he could give any sort of answer, the girl attacked him with a knife, causing the gash on his arm. He had managed to push her away before he stupidly ran into an alleyway in hopes of escaping her. The man continued to run, even faster than before, as he could have swore he heard a sinister giggle behind him. The man came to a brief stop as he reached a dead end. He looked around in panic to look for anything he could use as a weapon to defend himself, but the only thing around was an open dumpster. If only he had a quirk. He was one of the unlucky few who weren't blessed with such a gift. The man froze as he heard a slight scraping sound coming from the pitch-black alleyway he had just come from. He backed up against the wall in fear as the noise gradually got closer. But all of a sudden it stopped. The man's heart froze as stared at the darkness in front of him, waiting for anything to happen. But faster than he could react, an object was thrown from the darkness at him before it plunged into the man's leg. The man screamed as he fell to the ground. He glanced to his leg to see the end of a knife handle sticking out. The man painfully glanced up in front of him to find the same girl he had tried to help skipping out of the darkness, humming a tune. What's wrong? Don't you know you look a whole lot cuter bleeding? The girl grinned. She was wearing a bloodied school uniform with a dark blue skirt. She had on knee-length black socks while sporting brown shoes. Around her neck was a loosely tied red scarf. She had dirty blonde hair put into two messy buns. The girl had yellow cat-like crazy eyes, but the most important thing about her were the two large canines that could be visible when she smiled, canines almost like that of a vampire. Please, I have a family. I'll give you anything you want. The man pleaded while trying to crawl away. Anything you say. The girl repeated. Yes. My phone. My wallet. Anything. Anything. She cooed with a giggle. Yes. The girl put a finger to her chin. Okay, then how about your BLD? The man could only scream and helplessly watch as the girl pounced on top of him, pulling out a knife before stabbing him in the chest multiple times. It wasn't long until he was dead. After he stopped twitching, the girl sat on top of him still, staring at his lifeless face. She then brought a finger and swirled it in his BLD. She watched as it dripped from her finger before she stuck it in her mouth. Her face immediately lit up with a blush as she squealed in delight. MHPPP. That tasted so great. The girl exclaimed as she jumped up and down in excitement. As she was about to go down for some more, something in the corner caught her eye. HMP. From the open dumpster, a red glow was shining from below the visible trash. She walked over before she started to dig through, looking for the source of the strange glow. About halfway through her digging, she finally held it up. It was a red gemstone or crystal of some type that was giving off the glow. How did someone lose something like this in the trash? The girl examined it by turning it and flipping it around in her hand. She noticed how the glow got brighter before dying down before growing brighter again, like in a pattern. Like it was alive. She even put it to her ear where she could hear a slight hum that went with the rhythm of the pattern. It was like the strange gemstone had a heartbeat. A heartbeat that was full of BLD. A smile then began to form on her face. Wow, you're really pretty. Almost as pretty as BLD. The girl said in excitement. I'll give you a name. How about, Bloody? The girl exclaimed. Let's go Bloody. The girl then put the gemstone into a bag she had before she skipped away humming, completely forgetting about the corpse she left behind. Come on Midoriya. Move those legs. Sonic called out before blowing into a whistle he had around his neck. I'm trying, Sonic. Midoriya puffed out while continuing to sprint. It's been 8 days since Toshinori had asked both Sonics to help train Midoriya for the upcoming sports festival, which was now only 4 days away. For the past few days Sonic has had Midoriya train his tailbone off to get ready for the festival. Sonic blew into his whistle. Alright, that's enough Midoriya. You can stop now. Sonic called out, making the one for all user come to a stop. 12 laps, that wasn't too bad, Midoriya panted out while buckling over his knees. Yeah, not too shabby. Still about 200,000 laps less than what I do daily, but still not bad. Sonic nonchalantly claimed, which only got him a stare from the green-haired boy. Right, so what's next? Midoriya asked. Now that we worked on speed and endurance, it's time to work on your reaction speed. Sonic exclaimed. Reaction speed? Midoriya tilted his head. Well, of course. Dodging attacks is just as if not even more important than being the one who attacks. Sonic explained. I see, but how will we work on mine? Midoriya asked. Today we're gonna be playing a little game called Dodge the Spin Dash. Spin Dash? Wait. Isn't that your move where you curl up into a spiky ball before shooting off at an opponent? Midoriya's eyes widened in fear. That's right. Maurice. You're up. Sonic called out to classic Sonic, who had been laying in the grass with his head on his hand watching the entire time. Classic Sonic smiled before running over. Basically how this game works is you'll have to last 15 seconds without getting hit by Maurice's spin dash. If you get hit you lose. Pretty simple. Sonic explained. 15 seconds. That doesn't sound too bad. Midoriya replied. Oh really huh? Then let's find out. Now start. Sonic blew into his whistle as classic Sonic instantly curled up into a spinning ball before he shot off to the surprised Midoriya. Ah! Midoriya screamed, throwing himself out of the way of the oncoming blue ball. Sonic! You can't just start it out of nowhere without telling me. Midoriya yelled frantically as he ducked under another spin dash. Well, you do realize your opponents won't let you know when they attack you, right? Sonic replied back. You got 9 seconds. Midoriya proceeded to roll out of the way of a spin dash before jumping over another one. 6 seconds. I noticed Maurice can only spin dash if he unrolls and charges it up again, which should give me plenty of time to survive, Midoriya thought as dodged another one. But what Midoriya hadn't expected was for classic Sonic still in a ball to turn around and come right back at him. What? Midoriya mentally screamed before he was struck square in the chest, knocking the boy to the ground. Oh! Sonic cringed, his face scrunching up. And with only 3 seconds to spare. Classic Sonic walked over to the sprawled-out boy on the ground who was groaning before lending him a hand and lifting him up. Time to play again, Midoriya. Yay! Midoriya squeaked. An hour full of Midoriya getting hit from head to toe then passed before Midoriya collapsed on the ground after getting hit once again. I think that's enough for today. You did well, Midoriya. Sonic patted the down boy's back. Thanks, Sonic. Midoriya groaned before getting up. The only downside is I still haven't learned to control my power without breaking anything. Midoriya said sadly. Ah, cheer up, Midoriya, we'll still help you find a way. But don't you and Maurice want to train yourselves? So far for these past couple of days we've only been focusing on me. Midoriya pointed out. Don't worry about us, buddy. Me and my little bud have been preparing for the festival with our own time, Sonic assured. Oh, okay. Well, I've got to go. My mom needs me to grab some eggs from the store. Bye Sonic. Bye Maurice. See you tomorrow. Midoriya said before running off. Catch you around. Both Sonic and Classic Sonic waved. Sonic then turned to his past self. Okay little buddy. You ready for our little training session? Classic Sonic gave a thumbs up. Alright. Now I want you to run around the track as fast as you can, and while running I want you to focus on the energy within you to bring out the boost technique, Sonic explained. Let me show you a demonstration. Sonic then got into position before he began to run around the track, gaining velocity with every lap he made before that blue aura appeared and his speed skyrocketed. He kept this going before coming to a stop. Your turn. Classic Sonic nodded before he started to run like what his future self did. As he was running he focused onto his energy. Sonic, who was watching, started to see a blue aura flicker in and out of existence. Whoa! You're almost doing it. Keep it going. Sonic shouted. Classic Sonic continued running before coming to a stop out of breath. His future self ran over to him. Nice job man. You almost had it. Sonic high-fived his past self, who gave a cheeky smile. That was the closest you've gotten. You think you're up for it again? Sonic asked, gaining a confident nod in return. Then let's do it. Guys? Uraraka croaked. What's wrong Uraraka? Ida asked as both him and Midoriya walked over before they both too gasped at the crowd of people blocking their door. Why the heck are you all here? Uraraka cried out. Do you students have some sort of business with our class? Ida questioned right as Sonic zoomed over. Wait, what's going what's with the mob? Sonic raised a brow. That's what we're trying to find out. Midoriya responded. Why are you blocking our doorway? I won't let you keep me hostage. Mineta punched the air. Bakugou walked over with an annoyed look on his face. They're scouting out the competition idiots, with a class who survived a villain attack. He then walked over to the crowd who stared at him intimidated. Now you all know what a future pro looks like. Now move it extras or I'll make you, Bakugou threatened. Sonic rolled his eyes. How about you take a chill pill blonde before you start making threats? Exactly. You can't go around calling people extras just because you don't know who they are. Ida scolded, although Bakugou seemed unfazed by it. So this is the famous Class 1A. A voice within the crowd then grabbed the attention of everyone present. Heads turned within the crowd before they moved out of the way as someone walked forward. I heard you guys were impressive, but you just sound like an butt. The newcomer said, walking forward. He was a tall young man with messy indigo-colored hair. He also had tired eyes with dark bags under them. Is everyone in the hero course this delusional, or is it just you? The boy took a jab at Bakugou while everyone behind him started to frantically shake their heads. Nope, just him. Sonic vouched, gaining a glance from the boy. I don't know if any of you realize, but a lot of people in this crowd here wanted to be in the hero course, myself included. However, we were forced to choose a different track. Such is life, the boy suddenly explained, gaining a scoff from Bakugou. I didn't cut it the first time. But I have another chance. Another chance? I thought you only got one shot at getting in the hero course. Sonic thought. If any of us do well during the sports festival, then the teachers can decide to transfer us to the hero course. The boy stated. And they'll have to transfer someone out to make room. He revealed. Class 1A slightly gasped. A bit scared hearing this. They could get kicked out. Sonic gave an unamused frown. Well, that's kinda lame. How come Aizawa didn't warn us about this when talking about the festival? He thought. I'm here to let you know that if you don't bring your A game to the festival, then I'll steal your spot right from under you, the boy warned. Consider this a declaration of war. Everyone in the class and even the crowd in the hall stayed quiet with Bakugou glaring at the indigo-colored hair student in front of him. But suddenly Sonic brushed past Bakugou to the boy before him. "We accept your declaration. And you can forget about us bringing our A game because we'll bring our S game. So you better get ready." Sonic smirked, bringing out his hand to shake his. The boy stared at Sonic and the gloved hand in front of him before he surprisingly smirked too. "So someone in this class isn't an but. I like this guy," the boy decided, shaking Sonic's hand. "What's your name, Blue?" "Sonic." "And yours?" Sonic asked. "Shinso." "Nice to meet you, Shinso. Let's try our best at the festival," Sonic exclaimed. Shinso looked at him for a moment before nodding. "Right, see you then," Shinso said before he walked away as well as the rest of the crowd. What an odd guy, wonder what kind of quirk he has. Phew, for a moment there it seemed everyone hated our class, but Sonic came in with the save. Kirishima exclaimed. "Hey you!" Everyone then turned their heads to the shout to find a student with sharp gray hair glaring at them, or mainly at Bakugou. "I am from Class B next to you. We heard you fought some villains and I came to see if that was true. But you're just a bunch of brats who think you're better than us. CRP. Maybe not." Class 1A all thought, while Bakugou only glared at the boy over his shoulder before walking off. "Hey, don't ignore me. I am coming for you," he continued shouting at Bakugou over the crowd. But then his eyes landed on Sonic. "Wadash. Maurice. What are you doing with Class 1A? Are you betraying us, you traitor?" the boy accused. "Wrong, hedgehog pal," Sonic shouted back, catching the boy off guard by speaking. "Oh, my bad," he screamed back before running away. Sonic only shook his head. While everyone was talking about how Bakugou essentially made them all a target at the festival, Sonic noticed that Izuku was in a daze. "You alright, Midoriya?" "Huh, what?" "Oh. Yeah. I'm okay. Don't worry about me. Just thinking about the festival. That's all." Midoriya replied oddly fast. "If you say so," Sonic shrugged. And here it was the final day before the festival. Toshinori had called both Sonics and Midoriya to one of the school's training facilities. "I want to say I'm really proud of all three of you. You three have worked strong these past couple of days for this festival." Toshinori smiled. "Aw shucks, Tosh. I think you're giving us too much credit. After all, it was your idea to have us train," Sonic pointed out. Toshinori nodded, "Yes, but it was you three that made it happen. And because of that I'm proud of you guys. Especially you, young Midoriya." "Ah, really?" Midoriya asked. "Of course, my boy, you've worked so strong not only for this festival but to become a hero. I can see how badly you want to become one." Toshinori explained, "So, I know I chose the right person to be the next holder of one for all. And I don't regret my choice for a single second." Izuku stared at Toshinori before his eyes started to gloss. Thanks, All Might, that means a lot from the person I've looked up to my whole life." Midoriya wiped a tear away while both Sonic and Classic Sonic patted his back. "Now, young Sonic, young Midoriya, I have a favor for the both of you," Toshinori revealed. "What is it, Toshi?" Sonic asked. "I want you both." Toshinori started before a puff of smoke appeared around him and he turned into All Might. "To spar." What? You want us to fight each other?" Midoriya exclaimed in shock. "Exactly. This will be your final test before the festival, young Midoriya. During the festival you will be forced to fight against other students, including your classmates. So this would be a good way to prepare for that by sparring," All Might explained. "Yeah. This could be fun, Midoriya. Sonic agreed. Midoriya looked toward Sonic unsure before he nodded. Oh okay, let's do this then. Midoriya said confidently. Splendid. Now you both face each other from a relative distance and then I'll give the start signal. Got it. Sonic gave a thumbs. Alright. Midoriya exclaimed. Young Maurice. I want you to sit close and watch, you may learn a thing or two from watching your future self in action. All Might said, gaining a nod from classic Sonic. Both Sonic and Midoriya stood on opposite ends to one another. Green eyes meeting green eyes. All Might stood in the center before raising his hand. Ready? Both combatants nodded their heads. All Might threw his hand down. Begin. Get ready, Midoriya. Because I'm coming at you at supersonic speeds. Sonic exclaimed before he dashed at him. Midoriya didn't even have time to react before Sonic was already in front of him. So fast. Midoriya attempted to throw a punch but Sonic easily dodged it. He then tried to kick the blue hedgehog but Sonic ducked under it. Midoriya tried and tried again to land a blow but Sonic was just too fast. Come on, Midoriya. If you want any chance of hitting me then you need to use that power of yours. Sonic said before landing a kick on Midoriya's side that sent his feet skidding across the ground. Midoriya groaned from the kick. He's right. If I continue fighting like this I'll never be able to land a blow, but if I use one for all then I'll break. While narrowly dodging a homing attack, Midoriya thought back to the USJ when he took out all those villains in the water by putting one for all just in his finger and flicking it. Perhaps could that work against someone as fast as Sonic? Sonic kept dodging Midoriya's attacks. He started to do little tricks while doing it too. Like a backflip over a kick or a somersault. He then jumped back as Midoriya threw another punch, stopping right before Sonic's face. Like I said, if you want to hit me then you need to dash. Sonic briefly cut himself off as he noticed that one of the fingers on Midoriya's outstretched fist was strangely in a flicking motion. And it was glowing. Bam! Sonic didn't have time to react as the shockwave from Midoriya's finger flick slammed right into him sending him back tumbling across the ground. Both All Might and Classic Sonic were stunned at what happened. Midoriya had finally managed to land a hit on Sonic. Midoriya was in a mixture of shock and pain as he clutched his now broken pointer finger. He honestly expected for that not to work. Izuku looked back up from his broken finger in front of him to see a dust cloud departing to reveal Sonic already back up. Sonic rubbed his mouth. Heh, not bad. Not bad at all. I forgot you could do that. Why, you're already back up. Midoriya said frightened. Yup. And that was a neat little trick you did there. But if there's one thing you should know about me. If I get hit. Sonic smirked dangerously. Then I won't let it happen again. Sonic then shot forward while Izuku held up his arm and flinched another finger that sent a gust of wind at Sonic. The blue blur dodged it by rolling to the side before jumping up and bringing his leg down on Midoriya, who managed to throw himself out of the way. While on the ground Midoriya held out his hand before flicking another finger which managed to push Sonic back. Midoriya gritted his teeth from the pain coming from his fingers. Only 7 more shots. Midoriya thought. Sonic jumped into the air and launched himself at Midoriya, about to hit him with a homing attack. Izuku held his hand out at the incoming blue ball of quills before sending another shockwave. Sonic however quickly uncurled Sonic Wind. The blue hedgehog kicked forward sending his own shockwave which collided with Midoriya's, generating a gust of wind that pushed both of them back. Sonic grinned. You know you're not half bad, Midoriya. You're not so bad yourself. You're amazing. Midoriya exclaimed. Thanks. Now I'm coming at you with all I got. Sonic exclaimed before he started to rush around Midoriya so fast it appeared there were multiple Sonics around him. He's fast enough to make after images. Izuku mentally screamed before he started to shoot off gusts of wind at the Sonics around him, but unfortunately they would only go through them. Midoriya was now only down to 2 unbroken fingers. He was about to flick another one before an idea popped into his head. A very painful idea. This is going to hurt. Midoriya then, instead of focusing one for all into just one finger, he focused it into both of his hands. Detroit, smash! Midoriya screamed, but instead of throwing a punch, he clapped his hands, creating a massive shockwave around him that dispersed all of the afterimages as well as throwing Sonic in the air. Classic Sonic and All Might covered their faces as the shockwave blew their quills/hair. Whoa! 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 Sonic yelled before landing on the ground with a thud. Ow! Sonic groaned as he slowly stood up. He looked towards Midoriya and could see he was on his knees staring at his hands. They were a dark shade of purple and kind of just flopped around. It was most likely that attack he used broke them. Sonic could see Midoriya was on the verge of screaming. But before he could do anything, All Might stepped in between the two, holding his hand out. Stop! The sparring match is over. Midoriya is unable to continue, therefore Sonic is the winner. Sonic nodded before he rushed to Izuku's side. You okay, Midoriya? Your hands. Sonic gasped. See, could be better. Midoriya gave a pained smile. Classic Sonic also ran over and had an equally horrified expression as he saw Izuku's hands. Good job, you two. But young Midoriya, we should probably go see Recovery Girl. You can't compete in the festival with hands like that. All Might laughed. Ha ha ha, oh, she is going to kill me for this. Ack. All Might transformed, coughing out BLD. Okay, come along now, young Midoriya. Alright, bye guys. See you at the festival tomorrow. Midoriya waved before quickly remembering his hands were broken as he held in a cry of pain. See you there too. Both Sonics waved back. Well, little buddy, we should head back home. We got a big day tomorrow. Sonic said. Classic Sonic nodded in return. I don't know about you, but I'm pumped. Let's make sure we rock and roll tomorrow. Sonic exclaimed. Classic Sonic smiled back as the two hedgehogs high-fived. You won't get away with this, I won't let you. All Might coughed up while spitting out BLD from his injuries. Villain. Shigaraki's sinister smile grew as he watched the number one hero struggle to get out of his Nomu's grasp, which had lifted him up by the neck with a single arm. Oh, All Might, poor All Might. Shigaraki shook his head. I'm afraid you're in no position to make threats. That's if you don't want to end up like your students, Shigaraki said, motioning to the corpses of Class 1A that were next to them. All Might could only close his eyes as tears were beginning to pour out, not having the strength to look at the sight of his now deceased students. His deceased successor. You've had this coming for a long time now, All Might, he continued. You and the rest of these so-called heroes are what's wrong with this society. With a snap of his finger, All Might was then thrown by the Nomu, crashing into the ground. But for the very first time, All Might did not have the strength or courage to get back up and fight. TCH, All Might opened his eyes to see Shigaraki walking towards him with his hands behind his back, clicking his tongue. Oh, how the mighty has fallen. From hero to zero, they say. Shigaraki mocked. So many ways I could kill you. I could decay your whole body while leaving just your head for me to mount on my wall, or maybe I can decay your arm off and then beat you to death with it. Shigaraki cackled. So many options. He mused. Shigaraki stayed silent before shaking his head, but, I think I'll just leave it up to my trusty Nomu to decide on how he'll kill you. Shigaraki pointed at the downed All Might. Nomu, kill him. Shigaraki then expected for his Nomu to kill All Might right there and then. But to his confusion he didn't hear any footsteps or sense of movement from behind him. NOMU. Shigaraki spun around to face his MSTR's creation. I said dash. He stopped talking in shock to find that the Nomu wasn't behind him anymore or even anywhere in the USJ. What? He screamed in panic. What trick is this, All Might? Where did my NOMU go? Shigaraki spun around to face the man he hated so much. Only for a second time he cut himself off to find that All Might had disappeared as well. He turned to his right to also find that the corpses of the students he killed were gone. What's going on here? Who's doing this? Shigaraki continued shouting. A noise from below caught the attention of the villain. Shigaraki looked down to see that the floor below his feet started to form cracks. Wah, hh. Shigaraki then fell through the very floor itself, falling down through an endless black void as the light above from the hole he fell through dwindled rapidly. He then hit the ground, stopping his fall, although it appeared he was laying on the void itself. Just what the hell? Shigaraki panted while slowly getting up. Is going on? He looked around his surroundings, instantly noticing the only thing he could see was himself in this dark void. Shigaraki then began to walk in a random direction, even though it seemed like this void of darkness went on for eternity. What the hell did I say would happen if you kept talking about heroes in this house? Shigaraki's eyes widened as he heard the voice from all around the void. No, it can't be. Not him. Heroes will only cause you suffering. Shut up. Shigaraki screamed before he started to run. Kotaro. Please, that's enough. Stop hurting him. He's just a child. Shigaraki covered his ears, desperate to block out the voices while continuing to run further despite getting nowhere. He doesn't hate you, Tenko, he just has a strong time accepting heroes. Why is this happening? He thought. Let's keep it a secret from Dad. And then we can become sibling heroes. No, please. Not her, anybody but her. Shigaraki screamed mentally. Tenko, look, I'm sorry, I didn't mean it. Shigaraki continued to run. He ran even faster as he heard the prior voice scream in terror. He kept on running until he came to a stop. His eyes widened at the sight in front of him. For once he found someone else in this void with him. It was a woman with brown hair and brown eyes. Why did you kill me, Tenko? I loved you with all my heart. She spoke with a hurt frown. Shigaraki only stood there speechless. He was unable to say anything as he was starting to choke on his own words. Tenko. He spun to his right. His eyes landed upon a small girl with black eyes and hair which was put into two pink tails. She was also wearing a blue dress. Why did you have to kill me? I only wanted to apologize to you. She murmured. But before Shigaraki could even respond, he sensed another presence behind him, turning around to meet a man also with black eyes and hair. You killed me, you know what that makes you? That makes you worse than a hero, it makes you worse than even a villain. The man gritted his teeth with disdain. That makes you scum. And no. It was an accident. I swear. Shigaraki tried to argue but was stopped at the appearance of All Might. You're a villain. And you always will be. You don't deserve a second chance, which is why I'm taking you in. Villain. Villain. Scum. You don't deserve to be happy. Shigaraki crouched down while holding onto his ears as strong as he can to block out the voices from the people surrounding him, but unfortunately he could still hear them perfectly. Shut up. Shigaraki muttered. Villain. Why did you kill us, Tenko? Why? Scum. Shut up, I said shut up. I hate you all. He screamed with rage while slamming a hand onto the void surface. Right as he slammed his hand, the four figures surrounding him turned gray like ash before decaying into nothingness. Shigaraki grasped his chest as he struggled to breathe while tears dropped down his cheeks. He quickly wiped them away off, but before he could stand up straight, a blue flash of light appeared in front of him, startling and causing him to fall back on his back. He rubbed his eyes before they widened at the figure that stood before him. Standing in front of him was the same blue hedgehog from the USJ. The hedgehog that foiled his plans on killing All Might. The hedgehog named Sonic, he did nothing but glare down at Shigaraki. You! Shigaraki spat. I'm going to kill you, rat. He instantly leapt forward with his hand outstretched toward Sonic. All 5 of his fingers then landed on the blue hedgehog's chest. Shigaraki mustered up a malicious smile. But that smile soon fell as he realized the hedgehog before him did not decay like the rest of his victims. What? He hissed. Shigaraki could only stare at Sonic in bewilderment, frozen in terror. Sonic then started to levitate as his quills spiked upwards. 7 gemstones appeared around him, and before Shigaraki could react, an explosion of golden light erupted from Sonic, lighting the entire void itself. As Shigaraki uncovered his eyes, he could only look in horror at Sonic, who was now in that golden, invincible form that he had used to effortlessly beat his normal. That same golden aura around him which was somehow lighting up the void. He could only look helplessly at those furious crimson eyes that glared back at him. Sonic then smirked as he lifted a hand out towards Shigaraki before a blue ball of pulsating energy appeared. Shigaraki's eyes widened as he turned and tried to run away. But it was futile as Sonic unleashed the blast that consumed him, turning his vision white. "Aw!" Shigaraki shot up from the bar counter screaming before realizing where he was. He started to breathe heavily while his black sweater was drenched in sweat. "Nightmare?" Shigaraki turned to Kurogiri, who stood across the bar counter from him and was cleaning a glass mug. "Yes." Shigaraki spoke dryly. Kurogiri nodded. "I see. Was it the same one as always?" "It was, but this time with the addition of that damn blue rat." Shigaraki clenched his fists. Suddenly the monitor on the wall flickered on, which made both of them snap towards it. "Do not worry, Tomura. You will get your revenge soon enough. But today is the day." "Mstr." Shigaraki exclaimed. "Hello Tomura, I do hope you are ready." The voice began. "For the festival has finally arrived." Fireworks shot off into the air as tens if not hundreds of thousands of people roared in excitement, shaking the very stadium itself. Sonic could hear the cheers as he continued to do a couple of stretches while the rest of Class 1A sat patiently in their waiting room. "Man! Do you guys hear that? I'm so ready for this!" Kirishima exclaimed in excitement. "I know, right? I just wish they let us wear our costumes instead of making us wear our uncomfortable gym clothes," Mina complained. "But hey, at least it'll keep things fair for the other classes, right?" Ojiro pointed out. Suddenly the door to their waiting room busted open to reveal Tenya Ida. "Everyone! Get your game faces on. We're entering the arena soon," Ida announced. Sonic quickly finished his last stretch before he walked over to Midoriya, who was trying to calm himself down from nervousness. Sonic scratched his chin. Maybe if he talked about something, then maybe it would ease his nerves. "Hey Midoriya. I think I have an awesome idea that could help you out during the festival," Sonic said, gaining the green-haired boy's attention. What is it, Sonic?" he replied, curiosity. "So do you remember that attack you used on me at the end of our spar yesterday?" Sonic asked. Izuku raised a brow. "Yeah. Well, you should totally do it again during the tournament. It would be so cool." Sonic beamed. Midoriya smiled at the idea but then internally cringed after remembering what it did to his hands. And also at Recovery Girl's reaction when she saw them. She definitely wasn't happy with either him or All Might. Maybe just as a last resort until I figure out how to control my powers, okay?" he said while gesturing to his hands. Right. Sonic sheepishly laughed, "But if you do ever use it again, I have the perfect name for it. You should call it the Sonic Boom." Izuku stared at Sonic before suddenly bursting out laughing. "Why you want me to name it after yourself?" That's hilarious. Hey. It's a great name. Sonic tried to explain, but the bearer of One for All continued to laugh. Sonic shook his head but then started to chuckle himself. Well, at least I got him to relax a little. Midoriya. Izuku immediately stopped laughing as both him and Sonic turned and saw that Todoroki was approaching. Oh, hey Todoroki, what's up? Izuku asked. It seemed this attracted the attention of everyone in the room as Bakugou slightly glanced over his shoulder at them while Uraraka watched them with concern. Todoroki continued his gaze at Midoriya before finally speaking. From an objective standpoint, I think it's fairly clear that I'm stronger than you. Sonic looked at Todoroki with slight surprise. Why was he telling Izuku this? Why yeah. Midoriya mumbled. However, you've got All Might in your corner helping you out. Todoroki continued. I'm not here to pry into what's going on between you two. Just know this, you better be out there giving it your all, and when you do, I will beat you. Sonic looked at Todoroki appalled. Todoroki was perhaps the person in this class he has had the least amount of interaction with. Sonic had been curious about him when he saw his performance during the mock battle. And at the USJ. But the thing that interested him the most wasn't his quirk, skill, or his weirdly half-red, half-white hair color, but that scar Todoroki had over his left eye. What on earth could have caused that injury? Whoa man! What's with all the hostility all of a sudden? Sonic tried to intervene, but this had now gotten Todoroki's cold gaze on him. And you, Sonic, Todoroki began. The message goes the same for you as well. Out of everyone in this class, you're perhaps the biggest threat and challenge for me to overcome. Which is why I need to beat you at your best. Whether you're in that golden form of yours or not, I will beat you too. Sonic only stood silent as he glared back at Todoroki's cold eyes. Meanwhile, the class only watched in anticipation, waiting to see what would happen next. The blue hedgehog then suddenly smirked. All right, Roki. You're on. Meanwhile, much like with Class 1A, Class 1B also sat patiently and nervously in their assigned waiting room for the festival to begin. Oh Maurice. I'm so nervous. Pony said, frightened, while Classic Sonic patted her shoulders. Ah. I feel like there are thousands of butterflies fluttering around in my stomach. Pony squealed, what should I do? Classic Sonic put a loose hand on his hip as he tried to think of anything that could help Pony out. He then snapped his finger at an idea. He motioned to himself, taking a deep breath, signaling for her to do the same. It wasn't anything special, but it does get the job down when helping out with nerves. Right. Deep breaths. In and out. Pony exclaimed as she breathed in deeply to the point where her cheeks were puffing out and turning purple before letting it all out at once with a sigh. Classic Sonic shook his head. He didn't mean to take breaths that deep. Hey. I feel much better now. Thanks Maurice. This is why you're my best friend. Pony chimed before scooping up Classic Sonic in a bear hug. Classic Sonic, despite in pain, hugged back even though he felt like his eyes were about to pop out. Whoops. Sorry Maurice. Pony giggled before putting him down. Classic Sonic laughed it off with her before he looked around the room. Everyone seemed to be either doing their own thing to prepare or were talking to each other. Except for Monoma, who was trying to hype up the class to defeat Class 1A. But then his eyes landed on a surprising sight. It was Reiko. What was surprising about her was that Classic Sonic could see she was actually interacting with a few of the other girls in his class instead of keeping to herself like she usually would. Since he's been in this class, he's never seen Reiko interact with anyone but himself. Was it because of what he did during class when they chose hero names? A warm smile was on Classic Sonic's face as he watched her from afar before suddenly the door to their waiting room opened as Kendo entered. Everyone. The festival is starting. Let's get out there and win this big time. She cheered while throwing a fist into the air. Yeah. The giant monitor screen hanging off the area flickered on, revealing the Sonic screaming hero present Mike HEY. The crowd from the stands cheered loudly as present Mike made his presence known. Make some noise, rabid sports fans. Get those cameras prepped, media hordes. This year we're bringing you some of the hottest performances in sports festival history, guaranteed. I've only got one question before we start this show: are you ready? He got his answer as the entire stadium shook from the cheers of excitement. Aizawa, who sat right next to present Mike in the booth they were in, only sighed. How did he manage to wrap me up in this? Up in the stands where the heroes were watching, Toshinori sat in silent anticipation as he watched. The jumbo screens around the arena then flicked from present Mike to one of the tunnels that were plastered on the area's interior side. Everyone from the crowd to all the way at home who were watching live from their television watched the tunnel as Class 1A stepped out. Sonic, who was at the front, looked around in amazement at the size of the arena and on how many people were here in the audience who roared in excitement at their appearance. Both Sonic and Midoriya glanced to each other before nodding confidently. We won't let you down, Toshi. And here they are. Present Mike exclaimed, one of the many classes who will be competing in the festival. They aren't strangers from the spotlight. You know them for withstanding a villain attack. Let's get an standing ovation for the hero course students of Class 1A. The entire arena then cheered loudly and applauded as Class 1A walked forward. Izuku looked around him with a look of dread on his face. I didn't know there'd be so many people. He croaked. You said it, man. I've never seen so many people in one place before. Sonic agreed. I hope we're still able to give our best performance even though all these eyes are watching us, Ida pointed out. Even he was a bit worried. I suppose it's another aspect of being a hero we'll have to get used to. Present Mike sure hyped us up. Kinda makes me nervous. Kirishima gave a slight smile while turning to Bakugou, who was in front of him. How you feeling, man? I'm not worried. It makes me want to win even more than I already do. Bakugou stated with a malicious grin. This class hasn't got as much screen time as Class 1A, but this next group is still chock full of talent. Welcome Hero Course Class 1B. Out of another tunnel walked out Class 1A's rival Class 1B with classic Sonic at the front. Oh, I think I'm starting to feel those butterflies again. Pony mumbled while holding onto her stomach. Classic Sonic chuckled. Both Sonic spotted each other from afar. Sonic smirked as he waved to his past self, with classic Sonic doing the same for his future self. Present Mike then went on introducing multiple other classes that made their appearance. It wasn't long before every single class was now all huddled together at the center of the arena. Give it up for all of you A's first-year contestants. Present Mike shouted as the stadium continued to cheer. Classic Sonic ran over to his future self and the two exchanged a fist bump. You ready for this, little buddy? Sonic asked. Classic Sonic nodded his head confidently. On the platform that was in front of the students, the R-rated hero Midnight walked up to it before she spoke in the microphone she had. Now, for the introductory speech. Her voice rattled through the stadium. Most of the boys blushed at her due to what she was wearing. Even some of the males in the stands were as well. Someone should really talk to Miss Midnight about what she's wearing. Kirishima blushed while Mineta started to drool at the sight of her. Yeah, that costume should come with a warning, Kaminari agreed. Sonic only shook his head at the sight. Silence everyone. She exclaimed, SWNGNG, a miniature red flag she had in her hand. Now. It is time for the student pledge. Wait, someone's got to do a speech in front of everyone here. Heh, it would SCK to be whoever that is. Sonic mentally laughed. Due to getting first place on the U.A entrance exam, the student that will be giving the student pledge this year will be Class 1A student. Sonic Hedgehog. What? Sonic stayed frozen as he instantly felt like something internally within him just died while all eyes landed on him. Up on the stands, Toshinori slapped his head. Right, I forgot to tell him about this. Sonic, I think she said you have to go up there and give out a speech, Zero whispered down to ear level with him. Yeah, I heard her. But why did no one think to tell me about this? Sonic shouted, frantically putting his hands on his head wanting to rip his quills off. Sonic then groaned, FANFIC, let's just get this over with. Sonic reluctantly walked forward with all eyes still on him, as he walked by a girl to get to the platform. She scoffed. Only for the hero course exams. Why is she mad? Does she want to give out a speech in front of thousands of people? Sonic then reached the top where Midnight was waiting for him. She lowered the mic down to his level before winking at him. You're up, Big Blue. Sonic gulped out of fear. The entire stadium stayed quiet as they waited for him to begin. He could see that he was on multiple jumbotrons that littered the stadium. He then stared at the mic in front of him. What was he even supposed to say? Say how great it is to be a hero. That just sounded stupid. He glanced down to the students who were all staring at him. Bakugou scoffed before looking away with his arms crossed. Probably salty that he was reminded that he didn't get first during the entrance exam. Classic Sonic held out 2 thumbs up with a smile that screamed, "You got this." Midoriya gave a not-so-convincing smile, Tsuyu riveted, Kirishima scratched his head while breaking eye contact. His eyes then landed on Uraraka, who gave a weak little wave. Hey everyone. Sonic's voice echoed through the stadium. My name's Sonic. I am going to admit I'm not a pro at giving heartfelt speeches, but I'll try my best anyway. Sonic continued, gaining a few snickers from the crowd. So, I'll begin off by saying I'm sure all of us has a dream or goal we want to reach in life. But the question that we all ask is, how do we reach those dreams? Well, my friends, the first thing to do to reach your goals is to make sure you always stay a positive person. I'm sure everybody here has had times in our lives where we feel like we want to give up on our goals. But by staying positive and continuing to chase our dreams, we feel like we want to give up less and less over time. Of course, the road to success is not always smooth. We will face obstacles, setbacks, and failures along the way. But that's when we must tap into our resilience and determination. We must remember that failure isn't the end. Failure is a necessary step on the journey. It's about learning our mistakes, adjusting our approach and never giving up. In times of failure, I know it feels like you're alone, but you must always remember that you're not alone. Whether that be friends. Sonic glanced at some of his classmates watching him. Classmates like Izuku, Ida, and Uraraka. Your mom and dad, or even your. A picture of Tails flashed in Sonic's head. Brother. Sonic spoke softly. From the crowd of students a frown was formed on classic Sonic's face as he thought back to his friends. But as he glanced to his side, classic Sonic's eyes landed on Pony, who then looked over to him with a warm smile. Classic Sonic's frown quickly disappeared as he remembered he had friends on this world too. It's important to remember that success is not a solo journey. Our close ones will be with us every step of the way on our journey to reach our goals. It's important to surround ourselves with positivity and being a positive influence on those around us. As we pursue our goals, we must also remember to celebrate each small victory along the way. It's about recognizing the progress we made and using that as motivation to keep going. We all have the potential in us to achieve greatness. It's up to us to take consistent action towards our goals, staying resilient in the face of challenges, and of course to always remember the fact that you are not alone in the end. But above all, let's never give up on our dreams. Because once we believe in ourselves, then there's no limit that can stop us from reaching for the stars. Just remember that success is not a straight line. It's filled with twists and turns, ups and downs. But as long as you keep moving forward, as long as you keep pushing yourself, you will reach your goals. Life can be filled with hardships, but it's important to face them head on. No matter how tough the road ahead may seem, you have the strength and courage to overcome it. Believe in yourself and keep moving forward. You got this. Sonic exclaimed, throwing a fist in the air. Dead silence. That's all Sonic heard. The air around him turned cold as he slowly retracted his hand back while his concern grew. Did I say something dash? Sonic was cut off as he had to cover his ears from possibly the loudest noise he's ever heard. The entire stadium shook once more from the cheers and applause from not only the crowds in the stands but even the students up front. Sonic gave a sigh of relief, but before he could jump down he felt his head being pat. He raised a brow looking up to find Midnight petting his head. My! What motivation to start off this year's festival. Can we get another round of applause for Sonic here? She exclaimed as the stadium erupted into more applause. Shigaraki sat with annoyance as he watched the TV hung up in the bar. If only he could reach through that TV and decay that blue rat's face right off. That rat is so full of himself. That wasn't even a good speech. It was just full of mush. Shigaraki vented before a second voice spoke up. Remember Tamura, this festival is a perfect opportunity to learn about our enemies. Shigaraki's MSTR reminded him. Especially the blue one. Sonic hopped off the platform before wiping the sweat off his brows with his gloved hand. But before he could do anything else he was swarmed by Classic Sonic and the rest of his class. Dude! And you said you weren't a pro. That was amazing. Kirishima exclaimed while Classic Sonic high-fived his future self. Yeah, to be honest. I didn't know I had that in me. Sonic admitted. That was a wonderful speech, Sonic. Bravo. Ida praised. Agreed. And it seems thanks to Sonic that the other classes don't hate us anymore because of what Bakugou did. Kaminari pointed out. Bakugou heard this and as much as he wanted to yell at him he decided against it, only letting out a small grunt. As Sonic laughed with everyone he heard a small sniffle. He looked forward to find Izuku crying. Midoriya? Sonic asked but then gave a teasing smile, are you crying? I didn't think that my speech was that dash. Sonic was abruptly cut off as he and his classmates didn't expect Midoriya to rush him and suddenly hug him. Whoa man. Are you okay? What's the matter? Sonic asked out of concern as tears poured down the green-haired boy's face. And nothing. It's just, I really wish I heard that speech a lot earlier in my life. Midoriya cried out. Sonic stayed quiet at his words. He could have made a joke but figured to stay quiet, realizing how much an impact his words had on his friend. Sonic smiled softly as he returned the hug. Up in the stands, Toshinori had a look of mild surprise on his face. But he also looked proud. Well done, young Sonic, time and time again you not only proved that you have a heart of a hero, but a heart of a person who wants to do good. In the booth where Present Mike and Aizawa were, Present Mike looked at Aizawa with a wide grin. Wow! For an alien hedgehog he sure knows how to get the audience pumped up. He spoke while Aizawa agreed. Sonic might be arrogant, childish, and sometimes be downright annoying. Aizawa's lips then curled into a smile, but he's also more than that. As the applause died down, Midnight waved the flag in her hand. Without further ado, it's time for us to get started. This first game is what you call a qualifier. This is where the pain really begins. She threatened. The first fateful game of the festival is. Behind the R-rated here appeared a hologram of a casino-like spinner that spun rapidly. It spun for a few more seconds before it abruptly stopped. Obstacle race. An obstacle race. She exclaimed. All of Class 1A and 1B shared a collective groan while a growing smile grew on both of the Sonic's faces. A race, huh? Sounds like this game is built just for us, huh, little buddy? Sonic asked while Classic Sonic nodded with a confident smirk. Yeah. Miss Midnight. How is this fair for any of the rest of us? Monoma, who was nearby, complained. Hush now. For those whose quirks are based on speed, don't get too comfortable. As this is not a simple race. Midnight warned. This race is called an obstacle race for a reason. There will be traps and other surprises that will give you trouble and halt your progression. Midnight licked her lips. I would tell you more, but I wouldn't want to be a spoiler. The track you will be racing on is 4 kilometers that surrounds the entire stadium. I don't want to restrain anyone, at least in this game, so as long as you don't leave the course then anything is fair game. Now take your place, contestants. She pointed over to a giant red tunnel that dwarfed the other tunnels they came out of. Sonic scratched his chin. Traps, huh? Well, I guess they got to keep it fair somehow. Come on, Maurice. Let's do this. Sonic said as they both made their way with the rest of the students to the red tunnel. As all the students readied themselves in front of the colossal tunnel, Sonic immediately noticed a problem. There were far too many students that could fit through the tunnel even with its size. If they all went through at the same time, then they would face a similar situation like with the hallway scare. Say, Maurice. How about we give everyone a 10-second head start? Sonic said to his past self. Classic Sonic gave his future self a curious look before nodding. Giving everyone a 10-second head start wouldn't be too bad. They would avoid getting crushed like bugs and they could catch up with no difficulty. At the top of the tunnel entrance were 3 green lights that would be the countdown. All eyes watched as one light turned off with a beep. Nervous sweat poured down some of the students' faces as the second light turned off. Before finally. Beep. Begin. Midnight shouted as all of the students began a mad dash through the tunnel. And we're off to the races. Present Mike exclaimed. Both hedgehogs stayed as they watched the cluster of students run off down the tunnel. Midnight looked at them awkwardly. You two do realize you were supposed to go right? Sonic smirked. Don't worry. We're just giving everyone a friendly head start. As a matter of fact. Sonic then counted to 5 with his fingers. Time's up. Let's go, little buddy. Sonic and Classic Sonic then rushed down the tunnel swiftly. It only took a couple of seconds for the 2 blue blurs to catch up with the rest of the students, and with not much surprise to Sonic, they were shouting at and shoving each other. Stop pushing me. You pushed me first. You're trampling me. This is too narrow. Sonic sighed. Yup, just as I thought. Both hedgehogs continued to follow at a steady pace, however Sonic started to strangely shiver. Is it just me or did it get a lot colder in here? Sonic asked. Classic Sonic shook his head as he also felt the drop in temperature. He turned back forward only for his eyes to widen before he pushed his future self out of the way of an oncoming wave of ice. Whoa, thanks for the save, little buddy. Sonic appreciated, gaining a nod in return. Ice? I think I may have an idea on who's behind this. Let's keep moving. Sonic and Classic Sonic continued to run before they came across dozens of students whose feet were frozen to the ground. Time to go up and over. Sonic exclaimed as both hedgehogs then ran onto the tunnel's walls and ceiling, running over the stuck students. They both pushed forward, flying out of the tunnel and over more trapped students below before landing. Hey kid. Got any idea who did this? Sonic asked a nearby student whose feet was also frozen to the ground. The student shivered from the cold. It was that white and red-haired K-kid. He claimed. White and red hair, huh? I guess Roki is keeping his promise on beating us after all. Sonic said before an explosion was heard above them. I won't let you get away so easily, you icy hot bstrd. Bakugou yelled as he propelled forward through the air with his explosions. More students flew over them, such as Momo, who created a pull to vault herself over the stuck students, Aoyama, who used his naval laser, Ojiro bounced with his tail, Mina used her acid to skate, and Tokoyami used dark shadow to fly. Class 1B students like Ibra used her vines. Monama, unbeknownst to Mina, had copied her quirk and was using it the same way she was, and even Pony hanged on to dear life with her horns. A trick she learned from Maurice. Meanwhile, other students like Izuku, Ida, and Mineta struggled to maintain balance on the slippery ice. Sonic turned to his younger self. Come on. Let's catch up. Both Sonics continued after Todoroki, although they had to move slower just in case they wouldn't slip and fall on the ice. Soon enough they both saw Todoroki and a couple other students up ahead, but before they could catch up a purple ball landed ahead of them, and to both of their surprise Mineta went past them before bouncing off and throwing the ball from his head. Ha! Who's slow now, Sonic? He stuck his tongue out at the blue hedgehog. Wow! Sonic said as he watched Mineta catch up to Todoroki. You think you're so cool, but I've outsmarted you. Mineta boasted midair. How pathetic, Todoroki. Eat my special attack. He shouted before pulling a ball off his head. Dash. Wham! Mineta screamed as he was smacked midair by a robotic arm. He flew through the air before crashing and thumbing across the ground. Everyone, including even Todoroki, stayed still as they looked up in shock at the two enormous green robots that gazed down at them. Below the three were much smaller robots that looked like they were ready to attack. Target acquired. Terminate them. It's those robots from the entrance exam. Izuku looked up in surprise. Sonic readied himself. He didn't actually know if he could take these things on in a fight, considering he didn't beat the 0-pointer back at the entrance exam. The same with classic Sonic. Oh. Enemies have shown up out of nowhere. Present Mike came back on the speaker. I bet we're in for a real treat here. As it's a Robo Inferno. Most of the students couldn't move as they looked up at the two titans in fear. Are those the robots from the practical test? Kaminari questioned. This is what they meant by obstacles. Everyone shouted. So, this is what the other students faced in their entrance exams, Todoroki spoke. Where does the school even get the funding for these things? Momo commented while Uraraka stood beside her petrified, as she thought back to how she almost died to one of these things. One of the 0-pointers reached forward to attack. Both Sonics were about to fight back, but Todoroki stepped forward, which froze the ground around him. They obviously went through a lot of trouble, but I wish they went with something a little more difficult, Todoroki said, unimpressed as his right arm started to freeze and give off mist. He slammed it onto the ground where spikes of ice materialized around him. Especially since dear old dad is watching. He suddenly threw his hand forward as a massive column of ice and snow shot upwards at the mech, freezing the entire thing in place while also simultaneously destroying the smaller bots. Both hedgehogs' eyes widened at what just happened. Whoa! Sonic whispered. He knew the boy was possibly powerful thanks to his demonstration during the mock battles, but he would have never expected something like this. Todoroki stood upright before running in between the legs of the mech as he disappeared out of sight due to the fog that his ice created. That's Todoroki from Class 1A pulling ahead to an early lead with a devastating display. His attack was both offensive and defensive. Aizawa pointed out. He'd never even fought those Robo Infernos before, but they still didn't stand a chance against his moves. As everyone realized, this was their chance to move. The 0-pointer that Todoroki froze was beginning to tip over towards a group of students who weren't frozen because of the ice but because of fear. Great! Sonic muttered before turning to classic Sonic. Maurice, you go on without me. I'm going to stay back and make sure no one gets smushed. Sonic told his younger self. Classic Sonic looked at him with uncertainty in his eyes but eventually nodded before running past any of the surviving robots unseen due to the fog. Sonic zoomed forward, grabbing and rushing multiple students out of the way just before the 0-pointer crashed into the ground. Kirishima gave a sigh of relief. Phew, that was a close one. I probably could have survived that, but thanks anyway, Sonic. No biggie. But it seems like we got bigger problems now. Sonic said as the other zero-pointer and dozens of smaller robots charged their way. A battle between students and robots broke out. While students like Bakugou, Siro and Tokoyami used their quirks to escape and continue the race. Some stayed and fought the robots. Ida delivered a powerful rocket-propelled kick into a one-pointer's chest, instantly obliterating it. Jiro stuck her ear plugs into two two-pointer bots before sending a shockwave that short-circuited the two mechs. Sonic boosted forward, launching a three-pointer into the air. He jumped towards it, attacking it from all directions before bringing his foot down that sent the robot flying into the ground. He turned to his left to find Uraraka putting her fingers together as multiple pointer bots came crashing down all around her, but she had failed to notice a two-pointer bot sneaking up behind her. "Watch out!" Sonic called out. Uraraka tripped over herself with a yelp in surprise at the robot, but Sonic flew over her head, delivering a foot into the robot's face that sent it crashing away. "You know, Gravity Girl, I'm starting to think you have bad luck with robots," he teased while holding out a hand. "Ha," agreed. "I guess that's twice I owe ya," Uraraka replied, as she was pulled up back to her feet. "Don't mention it. But let's continue this talk elsewhere without any giant robots to worry about," Sonic advised. Uraraka agreed before she hurried off. Sonic then turned to the last problem he had to deal with. The zero-pointer. It was slowly but surely approaching him and the rest of the students that haven't already escaped and were unsure what to do against it. He looked around before an idea popped in his head as his eyes landed on Momo Yaoyorozu. If he recalled correctly, then her quirk allows her to create basically anything. He quickly ran to her. "Hey Yaoyorozu. Sonic. What are you doing?" she asked out of slight surprise and fear because of the zero-pointer. "Nothing much, just have a quick question," he nonchalantly stated. Momo looked at him in disbelief as the ground shook from the zero-pointer taking another step. What is it?" she asked. "You can make anything with your quirk, right?" Sonic asked again. Momo looked frantically between Sonic and the zero-pointer behind him that was quickly closing the gap between them. As long as I know the molecular structure of said object, then yes, that is correct," Momo explained. "Oh great. Then can you do me a favor and make me a screwdriver?" she deadpanned at him. "A screwdriver?" "Yup. A screwdriver." Sonic smiled. Momo had an internal battle within her, debating if she should just create it or just make a run for it. Momo decided to grant Sonic's wish. She held out two open palms, concentrating as pink light beamed out of her hands. A couple seconds later an electric screwdriver emerged from her hands. "Sweet!" Sonic exclaimed, taking the screwdriver. He pressed onto the trigger as it spined to life. "Thanks. Now I think it's time we send this big hunk of junk back to the scrapyard." Sonic turned around with a smirk, facing towards the zero-pointer who by now towered right over them, its giant red eye now focused on the two. "Target spotted. Must destroy." Momo gulped out of fear, not sure what a screwdriver could do against something so huge and terrifying. Sonic then ran at breakneck speeds up and all around the zero-pointer, leaving behind a blue trail. Momo with the rest of the students watched the scene in wonder before Sonic came rushing back down and stopped right in front of Momo. What did you just do, Sonic?" Momo questioned. Sonic grinned in silence before he raised his fingers and snapped. Almost on K, the zero-pointer then began to fall apart piece by piece before all that was left was a giant pile of scrap. Sonic from Class 1A just dismantled an entire zero-pointer. Just like that. Present Mike also couldn't believe what he witnessed. Like the rest of the students, Momo's jaw was left hanging as Sonic snickered while he rubbed the bridge of his nose. He handed the screwdriver back to her, who just accepted it while still baffled at what took place. Sonic then gave her a mock salute before blasting off, leaving behind a trail of dust. So alright folks, that's all for today. Stay tuned for part 6. Do subscribe, like and share for more such videos. Also check out the story and author Husbeck on FANFICTIONnet. Press the bell icon to be notified first on release. See you in the next video. Till then, goodbye.